What's up, guys? I'm DJ Swivel, and on this week's episode of Just the Tips, we are breaking down vocal rides. But before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell. Do what you gotta do. Run the intro. What's up, guys? My name is DJ Swivel, and we're back for another episode of Just the Tips. And on this week's episode, I'm going to be breaking down how I do vocal rides. To me, vocal rides are key to any great vocal performance. Music is dynamic. It's meant to have loud parts and quiet parts. And a good vocal should be just as dynamic. It should have its louder moments and its quieter moments. And, you know, it should ride the music like a wave. And the way that just a simple compressor works, or anything that you would normally do to kind of level out your vocal, what that does is that creates a linear volume on your vocal. And so we do vocal rides to kind of not only correct any sort of, dips in volume or louder parts that the compressor didn't quite catch, but also to make the vocal ride along with the music. And so I want to show you a few different ways that we achieve this. And of course, I'm using Pro Tools, so your DAW might be different than mine, and so you might have your own way of doing it in your DAW, but I want to show you how I do it. So there's typically two ways that I do my vocal rides. How I originally learned to do them was on a large console with a fader. And I do have a mini console here. It's an Avid S1. It's an amazing piece of gear. It's my mini console. And, you know, I don't need a large console. The truth is, all I really need is a couple faders. And that's what I use this for. But the other way, if you don't have this in Pro Tools, is you can use clip gain automation. So I will show you both ways, but we will start with the clip gain automation. So this is a finished vocal here, but I want to show you where it started. It started here. Let's mute this duplicate here. And I want to play you this vocal. Now, before we get started on playing it, the artist of this song, her name is Frawley. This is a song I'm mixing for. It's called Just Like That. It's coming out very soon. Make sure you go check her out. A link to her Spotify will be in the description box below. So anyways, this is her first verse vocal on this song. And as you can, even just looking at the waveform, you can see there's loud parts, there's quieter parts here, there's quieter parts here, there's these loud little moments that happen here. Let me just kind of lower the, you can see it's a fairly dynamic vocal, and there's going to be these loud and quiet parts. So first I'm going to play the vocal as is with the music, and I just want you to listen to what parts are a little loud, what parts are a little quiet. I've leveled this out, so you won't really hear a ton of parts that are too loud. You might hear a little bit, but mostly listen for the things that are a little too quiet. Okay, here we go. Oh, let me just make this inactive. Otherwise, we're going to hear a double vocal. Okay. There we go. All right, here we go.
I've waited up, can't get back the hours that I waited up. They used to be hours, and it's no coincidence. The next minute you're with a new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend, and now it's...
So it starts off with pretty solid. The first, half of the verse almost is great. Then, even up until about here is fine. Let me go into slip so I can, even up until about here is fine. This might be a little quiet. But then it gets it dips in volume a lot here, and then a bit here at the end. And each, we do this line, not just line by line, like syllable by syllable. So you really got to get granular with it. Now, I've already done the clip gain automation on this. So let me just flip to the playlist that has it. And you'll see it's the same vocal. We used everything here, did not change anything. But you'll see there's this little fader in the bottom in Pro Tools that allows you to raise, lower the volume of everything. And so what I've done, I've gone in and I've raised this, I've lowered this, I've raised this, I've raised this. This all stays the same. I've raised this. And so you can see I raised this 2 dB, I raised this 0.6 dB, 1.5 dB, 3.1 dB. So you can see everything is augmented to fit to make sure that the verse feels consistent throughout. So now, let me play you this back, and you can go back and compare how this one sounds.
I waited up, can't get back the hours that I waited up. They used to be hours, and it's no coincidence. The next minute you're with a new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend, and now it's boring.
Okay, sounds pretty good. I'm actually still hearing a few more little areas that are maybe a little quiet. You know, usually when I do this, I do a few passes of it, and I got to listen a few times because we're dealing with very nuanced things here. So anyways, that is the simplest way to do essentially vocal rides. But there is a big difference between doing it this way right on the clip or doing it the way that I'm going to show you shortly with the faders here. And the difference is this. When you do your vocal rides using clip gain automation, you are doing it before you are changing the volume of what hits your compressor, what hits your EQ, what hits your de-esser. And so that is going to have a slightly different sound than if you do it after the fact. So essentially what we're doing is leveling everything out before it hits the compressor. And we're essentially giving the compressor a more level signal so that it gets it even tighter. Now, in fact, the way that I most often do it is I actually do both. I do my clip gain automation first so that we have a consistent level hitting the compressor. And then I do my final rides after the compressor and everything on the volume here. So this little, this second track here is a duplicate of the vocal, just without the edits. And this little pink line that you see, this is your volume. This is your volume. So if I start writing automation, you'll see that line change, which we're going to get into right now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some automation on this vocal, which is, again, this is just the scratch vocal with no edits at all. And what I'm going to do is make this one inactive. Dealing with the whole mix here. What I should probably do is maybe mute everything else. So just the session is running a bit slow here. So let's make all that inactive. And that should, you know, waiting for a new laptop here. Come on, Apple. When are the M1 or M2 or whatever laptops coming out, the big ones? Anyways, all right, so now we're going to do vocal rides on this. And this one we'll speed through, do a little quick edit, and then we'll revisit when we finish. All right, here we go.
Oh, I need to. Oh, I'm already recording. Okay, here we go.
Okay, we're back. So, as you could see from that little quick montage there, went through and did all the vocal rides, and this is what we have. So this feels natural to me on first pass. I'm trying to do this a bit quickly, so I would probably, you know, in an actual mix setting or when I finish this record, I'll probably do a little bit more. But either way, this gets it pretty close. And so, as you can see, you know, I actually did make a few minor changes in the front, which I didn't on the clip gain. But as you can see, there's a lot more movement in the second half, which kind of correlates with what was happening with the clip gain automation that we saw earlier. So let's have a listen to it. And again, we can go back to the original vocal here so you can have context of both. So I'll play the original vocal first, and then I will play this, this vocal with the vocal rides, the post compression, post EQ vocal rides, just so you can hear the difference. All right, here we go.
I waited up, can't get back the hours that I waited up. They used to be hours, and it's no coincidence. The next minute you're with a new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend.
All right, now let's listen to the version with vocal rides.
I waited up, can't get back the hours that I waited up. They used to be hours and it's no coincidence. The next minute you're with a new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend.
So I am hearing some, additional changes that I'd like to make, but for the most part, it's a much, much more consistent vocal, much more consistent. And so this is how we typically finalize a vocal in a final mix. We want to get the vocal as consistent sounding as possible. And again, like I had mentioned, in, a real mix scenario where I'm, getting it all the way to the finish line, I'm probably going to do a combination of both. So what I thought I would do is do a little pass of that now, and I'll do it. You guys can watch the whole thing live. We won't speed this one up. So we'll just do, because it won't require quite as much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this vocal back to the one that we first edited. This is all, again, pre, your inserts, pre your de-esser, pre your compressor and your EQ. We are going to mute this one for now, or we'll make it inactive rather. And we are going to do vocal rides just on this one here. Okay, so let me switch to the volume. Okay, and let me just make these inactive as well. Okay, and let's just have a quick listen, and we'll just go through it. We'll do it together. All right, so let me just put this. What I'll do in Pro Tools is I'll go into touch mode, and then I'll also add trim. And what that means is the fader isn't moving, and I'm not trying to catch it. It'll always just stay at the same place. So then I can just make my, my adjustments from where it's at. All right, here we go. Oh. Probably want to unmute the vocal first. So let's try this one more time. Come on. Here we go. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Okay. So the other thing to be careful of is what do you have, in your automation window. So we can quickly look at that. We'll go into our automation window. And of course I have everything on. All I really want to automate is my volume. So now we're not going to get any of those weird mute things. If for those of you who aren't familiar with the automation stuff in Pro Tools, there you go. That's how you change what you are automating. All right, here we go. We're in touch. Let's do another pass. Here we go.
I waited up, can't get back the hours that I waited up. They used to be hours. Waited up, they used to be hours and they waited up. They used to be hours and there's no go. They used to be hours and there's no go. They used to be hours and there's no go. They used to be hours and there's no coincidence. The next to be hours and there's no coincidence. The next to be hours and there's no coincidence. To be hours and there's no coincidence. And there's no coincidence. And there's no coincidence. The next minute you're with a new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend. A new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend. A new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend. A new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend. A new girl on the east side that you said was just a friend.
All right, I think that's pretty close. That was just a quick pass. Normally I would go over this for, 20 minutes maybe. But that's a quick pass, and that just made a couple little corrections. Wanted to raise some things in here, duck some things here, A couple little things had to be ducked. And one thing that's interesting, you cannot do this purely by eye, right? You can't just look at a waveform and say, oh, that part's bigger, therefore it must be louder, because the way that your compressor is working the vocal can change what you're actually seeing. So for example, I actually raised this part. This is the loudest peak in the whole song, in this particular vocal, and I actually turned this up because the way that this peak happened, it hit the compressor extra hard, which ducked it more than it needed to be, and the way that the attack and release works meant that this section felt a little bit quiet. So this syllable felt a little bit quiet. So we raised it probably only about half a dB, not much at all. And that's how we get it. So there's our lesson on vocal rides. This is how I do it. Like I said, there's 3 different steps to this, but start with the first one, which is just try your clip gain automation. So let's go back to the waveform. If your DAW supports it, just try clip gain stuff where you're just raising and lowering the vocal before it hits the compressor. And then also try and practice with, if you do have a fader, you can also draw this if you want, but it's a little more tedious that way. I like to use my hands and I like to feel the vocal in that way. So if you do have a fader, you can go, you can get one of these Avid S1s. There's other products that are just, one fader. They all kind of do the same thing. And, definitely go try that if you can, and try and do your vocal rides, without the clip gain. Just try and, put your compressor, your EQ on, and then do your vocal rides and see if you can smooth the vocal out and start training your ear to hear these very little changes in volume, because you do have to train your ear to get this right. And then once you've mastered both, now try combining them, because the subtleties after you've done your clip gain automation, the subtleties for your post fader automation, the all your rides that we're drawing in with the automation, those are going to be more subtle because you've done a lot of the correction ahead of time, which means you really do have to get your ear trained. So hopefully you guys could hear this, as I was breaking this down, but I promise you every big mix engineer understands this skill and knows what they need to do to get a vocal right. So it is an important skill to learn, and I encourage you to take the time to do that. Anyways, I am DJ Swivel. This is Just the Tips for this week, and I will see you next time. Peace.